Game of the Year. Hi, I'm ThirdxTrick. You can call me Trick or Third. I feel like I want to preface this video by immediately saying that I'm some dingling on the internet. You should not take my opinions as the law or anything more than just like a passing thing. If I help you find something that you love, awesome. Or if I lead you to something that you hate, hey, that's my bad. But the human experience is a varying thing, and your mileage may vary. So now that we got that out of the way, God of War is my game of the year. I know, put your pitchforks down. I'm sorry that it wasn't Xenoblade. I'm sorry that it wasn't Stray. I'm sorry that it wasn't Elden Ring. I don't want to come off as biased because there are some negative things about God of War, but there are so many positives. And these are just like a few of the ones that I think stand out the highest on both ends of the spectrum. 3 positives. I think that the first point I need to bring up is the story, because it's amazing. I love a good story. Of all the Souls games that I've played through, I feel like Elden Ring is my favorite because the story or the narrative, from what I've picked up, is amazing. It's fantastic, and it's told in a very beautiful way. And Vatividia, God bless you, my friend. You've made me understand things. Obviously, God of War is told in a different way. It's very direct in its storytelling, and that's fine too. These are both excellent ways to drive a narrative. But I think that the story in God of War Ragnarok is so satisfying. It makes me feel like there are no stones left unturned. Except for one. Who blew the horn and called Jormungandr? I think it was a Boulder, but I don't know. Lore videos. No, I'm kidding. The plot of God of War Ragnarok, picking up from God of War 2018, leaves virtually no stone unturned. I don't think that there was any plot point that wasn't completely satisfied. By the way, spoilers for God of War 2018. We can start with Freya. Freya is a character who is broken at the end of God of War 2018. Baldur is dead. She has nothing. She has been torn of her ability to fight back because of lover scorned in Odin. She is banished from her homelands, and even if she wasn't, Odin has kept her captive in Midgard. Oh my god. And she ends up becoming this huge badass who solves her problems not by using story plots relevant to a man, but things that are ultimately character development. Like, she is fully fleshed, and it does not rely on Odin. It does not rely on Freyr. It does not rely on Kratos, and that's a beautiful thing. It's not to say that they're not a part of it, but they're not the ultimate point of her story. And then I think ultimately you have to talk about Atreus next. Atreus is trying to find out who Atreus is versus who Loki is and who he is in between the two. I mean, not only that, you're looking at him as a giant, as a god, as a human, as a mortal, because he's all of these things. If they did a game that was just Atreus and his big old schnoz, I would play that shit. Play that. And then you gotta end it on Kratos. Kratos as a character in God of War has never been particularly deep. And honestly, in some of the games, you could say that his depth was like a puddle. The man had a story that was built around a teaspoon worth of character depth. But that was okay, because on the PlayStation 2, you just wanna beat people up and smash them, and then lift them up and juggle them and slice and dice and boobies. God, there were so many boobies. It was awesome. Now that I'm an adult, I still like slicing and dicing and smashing and ripping and tearing and boobies, but I also like character development, and I feel like Kratos gets that. Kratos becomes a better god because he becomes a better human. He shows humility. He goes from a plot of vengeance to one of justice, and he understands the difference between the two, in my opinion. Kratos is able to kind of blur the line between what is fate and what is choice. He's able to take the plot into his own hands. He truly, in God of War Ragnarok, becomes not someone's monster, but his own man. And I really like that. I've played every God of War game, so to say that I'm satisfied if this was the last game, that's a pretty big deal. But I'm gonna be real with you, if they do a prequel where he's in Egypt, I will shit and come. One of the biggest problems that I have with console gaming as a whole is a lot of games don't have remappable configurations on the controller. A big thing about like the marketing for God of War Ragnarok was that this game is accessible. Anyone can play it. The game is insanely accessible. I like Dark Souls configuration. B or circle being dodge, X being jump, Y being interact. I really enjoy that configuration. And do you know what God of War did? It said, hey, you do that. We're not going to stand in your way. So I did. And it was amazing. A big thing about the marketing for God of War Ragnarok was game accessibility. And like they literally show this guy with one arm and he's playing the game. He's playing with his mouth on the thumbstick, using his bottom lip on the thumbstick, upper lip on R1, R2. Bro, I'm telling you right now, I love video games, but like that guy is a champion. It's not just button configurations. It's also high contrast modes for people who process things different visually. It's mono sound for auditory differences. Like it's a truly beautiful thing. Personally, my favorite is that there's a setting where you don't have to mash your buttons, so you can save your $70 controller. And there's also a setting where you can just pick up loot automatically. Oh my god, boss. It's so beautiful. So beautiful. The biggest thing that I could scream off the top of a mountain, even if the story wasn't as good as it was, or even if I couldn't reconfigure button settings, this game runs flawlessly. And that's a big deal. I hate that saying a game released working as intended is a big deal, but it really is. I can make a whole video about the state of games being released unfinished or in poor quality control. Just this year alone, we have Gotham Knights releasing in it poorly. Terrible frame rates, terrible texture mapping as you drive on the motorcycle thing, and a very dead setting. When you're supposed to have civilians running around as well as criminals, and the streets are... I think the most topical I could say right now is the Callisto Protocol. Having a 60 gigabyte day one patch? What? That's a whole nother game. The game has poor frame rates at very key moments, especially when you're trying to build tension for scares. Its optimization is insanely poor for a PC port, and I think that the only platform that's having any kind of success with a somewhat consistent frame rate is PS5. I have a PS5. It's me. I don't want to play it on PS5. And even a Game of the Year contender like Elden Ring had a pretty shaky start. Initial patches that really had to come through quick to fix frame rate issues. I've already said I love the game, but that was a really poor launch. My last strong positive in how mechanically sound this game is and runs is that the monotony that was God of War 2018 sub-bosses and boss variation it's not a problem anymore. You don't fight the same reskin 10 times. Now, I'm not gonna lie, there are some reskins, but it's nowhere near the same level. And honestly, some of the reskins, they have separate mechanics, so they work like a different boss, and that's amazing! Not to mention, finishing moves, because of enemy variations, don't feel as time-consuming, and they feel way more rewarding. Like, it is a visceral feeling cutting someone's arm off, cutting their head off, cutting their torso in half. I'm starting to sound like actually a psychopath if I keep talking about that. I should stop. So now we get into 3 negatives. Gameplay wise, one of the biggest issues I had with God of War was hand-holding. A big problem is that in puzzles, companions won't give you any time to solve the situation, to figure it out, to look around, to get your hands dirty. I can't tell you how many times Atreus or Freya will run immediately up to the next objective, and if you take more than 90 seconds to figure it out, Atreus will just be like, I think you need to freeze this geyser so that we can do this and then that and then that. And you're just like, come on, bro. Like, I saw something shiny over there and I was thinking maybe I could go get that when we're done here. But yeah, you're right. It's still satisfying to get through like a lot of the larger mechanical puzzles, but let me figure that out, please. I think that boss checkpoints detract from the quality of the boss fights. I don't feel like I've earned it when I get to boss checkpoints. And I died quite a few times playing God of War. But like specifically in the Valkyrie fight, getting that checkpoint made me feel like I didn't earn this. And that made me sad. It's an amazing fight, but I died about halfway into it, and then I respawned and they were still at the halfway point of the fight, and I was like, man, now I don't feel as good. I've really become a fan of simplicity. The user interface in God of War gets cluttered. There are things about it I also just don't like. Now, granted, it's not an Ubisoft game, so we're fantastic. I don't like the arrows around Kratos' waist. Now, if it was just that, I would be pretty okay. But honestly, it's also the fact that Mimir or Atreus will make a call out that someone is about to attack you from the backside, but I'm always too late on the dodge. Here's a weird complaint that I have about the user interface, and that's with the compass. Now, in God of War 2018, it's very eloquently explained that Freya gives you this compass, and it takes you to your goals. In Ragnarok, Sindri gives you, it's like this device, I crafted it, and and it's just, the best description that I have for it is that the compass in God of War Ragnarok as you're going from map point to map point feels like when you jump with Luigi in Doki Doki Mario. It's floaty, and I don't like that. Oftentimes I would find myself getting confused trying to go from one area to another to get to a specific map point that was like a progression point in a mission. I would find myself circling around certain areas of the map and not understanding why I couldn't progress. This next one is weird because in other games it's actually a very strong positive. But this game suffers from the 45-second rule. In God of War, as you're going through a linear path, if every 45 seconds you start to run into enemies, it almost feels like fluff or spam. And unless you're from Hawaii, you might not be into spam.
Son of a bitch!
This is a spoiler alert, and if you don't want any part of the game spoiled for you, I suggest that you skip to this point in the video. Are we good? The time you spend without Atreus as your companion is the worst amount of time you spend with your companion. And maybe that's like to make you feel like Kratos. It hurts. The best companion that you get is Brock. RIP to the real ones, man. Freya does not stack like Atreus does. He's so in tune with the way Kratos does combat, and Freya is her own warrior. And I'm honestly, I think that this is me being a purist of God of War combat. I just don't like the way that Freya combos with Kratos, because she really doesn't. She is her own warrior. She's fighting her own way. And like, you don't get the same stun locks that you get with Atreus. It's not the same. That's not to say she's not powerful, because she has her own independent abilities, but like, man, anything other than that poison just isn't worth it. I'm also gonna say that Sindri deserves to be a bastard. He deserves to be angry, and he deserves to feel ashamed. This is the point in a review where the reviewer gives their arbitrary numerical value to a game. And I'll do that, but I also want to preface that by saying, again, I'm just some dingling on the internet. Don't take what people who review videos say as the word, the gospel, the law, because it's not. You are your own person, and as long as you're open-minded to new experiences, you might find a new game franchise that you're going to love. Except Monster Hunter. Fuck that. I'm kidding. If I give the game a score, it's going to be 9 out of 10. It's amazing. Truly awe-inspiring. I can't give it a 10 because I don't think there are any games out there that are a 10 out of 10. The closest I would say a game has ever been to 10 out of 10 is Super Mario Bros. 3. And that's because that's a game it's easy to get good at, but impossible to master. And there's a ton of different play styles that fit what that game is. And it's just been good for my whole life. I never get tired of that. I don't like that some people who review media, games, or movies, they give these 10 out of 10. And there's no way, man. How could you say it's perfect if there's someone who didn't enjoy it? How could you say it's perfect if there's something about it that you didn't enjoy? You know? And that's me holding myself accountable. So go play God of War. Like, my ultimate evaluation is that you should play it. It's amazing. It's a reason to buy the PS5. I don't believe in game exclusivity. Like, I'm not an advocate for it at all. And when the game comes out on PC, I want everyone to play it. Everyone deserves to play this game because it's phenomenal. If you want to see a video of me talking about the idea of Game of the Year awards and how it's not conducive to the betterment of the gaming community, leave a comment below. Tell me what your Game of the Year is. I really want to know. Unless it was Xenoblade. I'm kidding. Tell me what game got your attention the most in 2022. Follow me on all my social medias. Follow Jack. Follow Delta, who makes all of my channel music. Give everybody some love. Follow VectorSeal as well, who does most of my channel art. Be good to each other. I love you. Bye-bye. I love you. Bye. I love you. Bye. I love you. Bye.